This episode of America Fog of War is brought to you by Civil War Trails. Civil War Trails is the world's largest open-air museum, with over 1,300 sites to explore across 6 states. Drive the Gettysburg Campaign turn by turn, paddle past Frederick Douglass's birthplace, or hike to remote artillery positions. Follow Civil War Trails and create some history of your own. Visit civilwartrails.org to request a brochure today. Our guest for this debrief episode is a Marine Corps mortarman with 3 combat deployments to Afghanistan's Helmand province. During his time in the Marine Corps, our guest has held the positions of 60mm mortar squad leader, then becoming a section leader, an FDC chief, and section leader for 81mm mortars. He would graduate from the Marine Corps Drill Instructor School and train new Marines on Parris Island, eventually being promoted to the position of Senior Drill Instructor before ultimately being made Chief Drill Instructor. As always, the views and opinions expressed on this podcast are not those of the U.S. government or any of its branches of military, but are solely those of the individual. This is our conversation with Staff Sergeant Jack Larter. I am Colby Sumner, and this is America Fog of War.
Pride of our nation, this day have set upon a mighty endeavor, a struggle to preserve our republic. Men's souls will be shaken with the violences of...
The cost of freedom is always high, but Americans have always paid it. And one path we shall never choose, and that is the path of surrender.
I can hear you. I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. In the field. In the people who knock these buildings down. Well, hear all of us.
We're told that on his body was found a diary. Under the heading, My Pledge, he had written these words: America must win this war. Therefore I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure.
I've always been kind of curious because mortarman was not one of those things that stood out to me like as what I wanted to do. So I'm curious because you started your Marine Corps career as a mortarman in the infantry, and what made you decide you wanted to do that when you were at SOI? Like when they were doing the MOS breakdown, what made you pick mortarman?
They had a guy come out and he was talking about what you could do as a mortarman, and one was, of course, the gun line. Then you had the FDC guys. And then they started talking about FOing, and I was like, that sounds really cool. But of course, he oversold it. Naturally, like they do at SOI. So I was like, oh, that'd be really cool to get attached out to a squad and, be slinging rounds and be able to call in for indirect fires on a target. I always thought that was really cool. But it ended up playing into my hand and my strengths anyway. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I got lucky picking that route, just because. And then looking back at a lot of things that we got to do in mortars that other guys didn't have the experience, or didn't have the opportunity to do. Like once you get into 81s and you start doing trap missions and it's like a lot of other guys didn't have that ability. So I feel like I got really lucky doing that. But yeah, it was definitely when the guy started talking about forward observing, I was like, oh, that sounds really sweet.
Heck yeah, man. For like that, because that is a sweet job, especially with the guys that get to do it for like the big arty rounds and stuff too. Any kind of forward observer, because you're part of the infantry squad, but you're also like a specialist, kind of a standalone guy too. So it's a very cool place to find yourself in a conventional infantry platoon or assigned to one.
It's a whole nother world.
Oh yeah. But then they came out and one of the guys started talking about 51s and like assaultmen. I was like, oh, that's the deal. That sounds awesome. They're like, yeah, we don't train those in this company though.
What? So you went to SOI 2 years after us, right? Or no?
2009, you hit the fleet.
So yeah, roughly around 2 years. So what company did you go to?
I went to Bravo Company.
Bravo Company.
ITB.
And there were no 51s there.
There were no 51s. They had 52s.
That's interesting. Well, because of 51s at the time, remember it was impossible to pick up. You had an impossible cutting score to be able to pick up rank.
Oh yeah.
And I think it was because they were just like they got way over quota on 51s to begin with, because we had a huge 51 section at our SOI class. We had the 52s as well. For people that don't know, those are your MOS numbers. So infantry is always 03, and then whatever two numbers follow that tell you, what job you're going to be. So like 11 is just a rifleman, and 41 is a mortarman, a 31 is a machine gunner, 51 is an assaultman. That's what Tommy and I did. And then 52 is an anti-tank tow gunner, which I only ever saw one tow missile get shot, but it was cool. I think it's in the 2-9 golf video that's on YouTube. But
there's a couple of them on YouTube.
Yeah. I got off on a tangent there. Mm-hmm. But that being said, so you feel like you made the right call going mortar?
Yeah, it's just the timing of everything, and then the exposure you get if you're going to stay in any amount of time. Because how many times did I with the six, even you guys got attached out to everybody. So you go to 29 bombs and you go run range 410 6-7 times every time you go. Mm-hmm. If you start counting all these other runs and stuff, you probably ran that range 9 times every time we deployed. You go to 400, you run that a couple different times, but then as you move on in your career, you've seen so many different things. Then I get to go to weapons company. So I've seen 400, 7-8 times.
Yeah.
Being intimately involved with fire support plans at every level. It's like, so when you start to come into your own and become a more well-rounded infantryman, I think mortars was definitely the place to do it. Because you have machine guns in 81's platoon. You have CAT right there. It's just a great place to kind of, once you get the 60s and 81's experience.
Well, you understand how they work too. So like calling for indirect fire and stuff, like getting into those higher leadership roles and responsibility billets and stuff, like squad leader and platoon sergeant, whatever your progression goes, being able to know how to do that well, reliably and very well, and understand, like, having shot them yourself, you know how they work on an intimate level. It really can make the difference especially if you're in a bad situation.
Yeah, and you got a lot of experience on the 81s, probably less than a month into Afghanistan when they made a change to 81s.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I'm really curious about your drill instructor career, but before we get there, I do have like a few more questions about being a mortarman. You're the first mortarman we've had on, so I'm going to pick your brain a little bit.
Awesome.
What was a time as a mortarman, whether that's on your first or second deployment, because both were to Afghanistan, correct?
Well, my first 3 were to Afghanistan.
Where did you go? The second time you guys went back to Marja, right?
Second time we went back to Marja. The third time was really cool. We got attached out to Regimental Combat Team 7, and we were our own entity. Weapons and Echo went out there. We were operating separately. We were out of Leatherneck, just doing helo raids out of there. So it was a really sweet gig. You could do a helo raid, get in a gunfight, and then be back in time for chow.
Eating in the awesome chow hall too.
That's sick.
That's sick, dude. That's the way to go to war right there.
We had air conditioning. It was awesome, especially, and then being in 81s over there, but one of the only guys with 60s experience. When one of the other platoons would go out, I would just roll with them with the 60. So I got a ton of raids under my belt on that deployment.
You were still in 2-9 when you went on that one? So was Stokes still there with you in weapons?
Stokes was still there, yes. Stokes.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool, dude. You guys always had a very good working relationship. I feel like he liked you the most out of all the guys, like the bunch that came in with you. I feel like you were definitely his favorite.
Yeah, even when he went to weapons and I stayed in golf, we would still bounce things off of each other, even though we weren't in the same company. He was obviously, the peer group in front of me. He's a corporal at that time. I was still a lance corporal for a little while. I got promoted a little bit after, but. Yeah, we always had a really good working relationship together. And then especially when I came over to 81s, we both went to the Fire Direction Center, and he had one section, I had the other, and things just went as smooth could be. I really think that.
Well, you guys had been working together for 4 years at that time, right?
Yeah. So we were pretty dialed in. I could tell you what Stokes was going to do probably right before he did it, and vice versa when it came to anything mortars.
That's nice because junior Marines, they don't know how lucky they are when they have guys like you working together with a working relationship like that, and it's a little bit of Marine Corps that you find in a good sweet spot, and that's what you guys had. That's cool.
Well, so that being said, let's get on to like the thing that's I'm so interested in it because I've only experienced boot camp from the recruit side. I've never ever experienced boot camp from like the drill instructor side or the side of authority there. But before we get into like taking care of recruits, I was going to ask you, man, what's the process like getting like, first off, what made you decide that you wanted to be a drill instructor? And then what's the process like getting into drill instructor school? Is it hard? I mean, is it like do you have like a NDOC you have to take or a selection process you have to go through at all?
Long story short, First Sergeant got this package and he just went ahead and ran it around the company. So it's like a SDA package. It goes around to all your levels of leadership up to the battalion commander, and they write a paragraph about you. And then he's like, hey, go ahead. Here's your package. Go ahead. I got you orders. I'm like, where am I going? He's like, Parris Island. I was like, me? Like the guy who walks around the battalion and everyone just knows him as Jack. And
how about that?
I was like, yep. And like an idiot, I signed it. So yeah, the thing about the drill instructor package that makes it different is the battalion commander has to check a box that says you are the top 10% of the Marine Corps. That's what separates that package. And then they just cut you orders.
How hard is it to get them to sign off on that?
Well, that's a whole different story. Sometimes I have seen guys where they've just shot it down completely. They're like, there's no way we're sending this guy. But then you get down there to Parris Island and you could see that somebody obviously signed a package that didn't know who they were signing it for. So you have a little bit of those, but again, luckily being in mortars, I had that relationship, especially being in 81s. Everybody knew who I was. And especially that fourth deployment, I was the only sergeant in 81s. So every company had to deal with me when it came to doing anything for their planning fire support. They had to deal with me sitting in a room with their fire support team about stuff. So everybody knew me. It wasn't that big a deal for them to sign that package and send it off. But April 1st of I'll never forget that. I checked into DI school, and there you are getting treated like a recruit all over again.
Dude, that has to be such a rude awakening.
Especially being in what I thought I was like an average guy checking in, but I had a class that had the most infantrymen they've ever had, which was like 8 out of like probably 70 of us. So what's funny is me being me, I was like, there's no way. I got till whatever time to check in. I'm going back to my barracks room. I'll hang out for a little bit, which was kind of funny. So then I rolled in like one of the last guys, let him yell at me for a little bit, and then just went and sat down. But yeah, it definitely, when you go from being the guy to a nobody real quick, it's like, it's an awakening call. Now they don't do it like they used to anymore. Because this is, pre-incident that happened down there. So they were still basically treating drill instructors at DI school like recruits. New drill instructors didn't get treated very well, kind of like being a brand new boot that checks into an infantry battalion was for us. But definitely worse than that for a little while. But yeah, and then it's just like, it's a weird experience to be, you have all this under your belt. You're an experienced, NCO, staff NCO. You're sitting in a room and you have somebody that's probably not been in as long as you, and definitely probably doesn't have the experience level you do, sitting in front of you telling you how jacked up you are. And it's like, I think probably not.
It's tough to navigate. So, yeah.
It's tough waters. And luckily I went through with a bunch of bunch of O3s for the time period, because I think when I came in zone for staff sergeant, I had looked to see how many staff sergeant or how many sergeants that were O3s were on Parris Island. And I want to say there was 10 of us across the entire recruit training regiment that were O3 sergeants on the entire island out of like 600 drill instructors. So there was next to none. And
That's crazy.
Healthy portion of us went to DI school together. So it's kind of like and you know how it is too. The infantrymen, they carry themselves a little bit differently, and you get a couple of them together, it's a different experience for people that aren't used to dealing with it.
Yeah, you could start clicking up a little bit there.
Might be a little different for the recruits too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. You brought up that about recruits, because I had never had a cycle as a drill instructor where they didn't figure out that I was an infantryman within the first phase. Every single cycle I had, they knew that I was an O3 from basically day one.
Are they supposed to not know? Because like I had an O3 drill instructor.
You are definitely supposed to tell them at the end now. That's like a requirement. They're going to know at the end, but you don't really talk about any of your Marine Corps experiences up front as far as like what your background is, unless you're like a senior drill instructor or something. Like a green belt really has no business talking to recruits about what their MOS was.
So are you like living in a squad bay every day, or is this you're coming and going, you're reporting in the morning and leaving?
San Diego does have squad bays where they live in. Parris Island, we didn't. We had 2-man barracks rooms. It really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, because, I was just preparing for the worst. And it was basically just 2-man rooms in a barracks, and you got assigned squads, and you went everywhere as a squad. You'd fall out of your barracks room in the morning into your squad, get accountability. And that's how you went anywhere. Usually because I want to say drill instructor school, I want to say it was closer to 4 months. It might've been 3. For the first little while, you went everywhere as a class. The whole class, you had a class commander, and then squads would like march themselves everywhere.
It's no secret that Brett and I have been friends since we were 18 and in the first year of our enlistments. Well, a few years ago, we decided that we needed to see each other with more consistency than we had been up to that point. But it would have to be a trip of some kind because we lived on opposite ends of the country. For us, there was no better way to spend our time together than being out on one of the many battlefields all across the country. We would take 2 trips a year, each of them just for a few days, and go park the car, get out, and walk a battlefield like Antietam or Gettysburg. And we'd have a blast. It's on one of those trips we decided to start America Fog of War. Walking America's battlefields in the footsteps of the men that fought the battle is the best way to learn the legacy of the American warrior and to really appreciate the sacrifices they made. Brett and I both still do it, and although it's usually for researching the subject matter of our show these days, it's still fun. If you're interested in following the Army of Northern Virginia's invasion into Maryland, or its retreat after the defeat at Gettysburg, or Grant's 1864 Overland Campaign, then I highly recommend checking out Civil War Trails. I've been a fan of Civil War Trails and what they do since Brett and myself started doing these battlefield trips all those years ago. They're an awesome organization. They make historical interpretation of the American warrior's legacy easier to access and enjoy for everyone. If you'd like more information on Civil War Trails and what they do and all the different sites that they have for you to explore, then go check out civilwartrails.org. Find a battlefield or a site that you want to visit and stand in the footsteps of the men and women that made this country what it is today.
So are you learning leadership skills to be a drill instructor, and then also drill instructor, like the history, like the Marine Corps history of drill instructors? Is that how it's kind of drawn out?
Yes and no. You're basically going through and you're learning the conduct of a drill instructor. This is how a drill instructor conducts himself. This is how, your uniforms will be perfect. you start to get into history of stuff later on, especially when you start talking about, why do drill instructors wear the campaign cover? When did that happen?
When did that? Why? You got to tell us that story. I want to know that. Why did they start wearing them?
So prior to this incident in the 50s, they didn't have any special cover or anything. But there was an incident called the Ribbon Creek incident. And this incident was basically drill instructors had immense pressure put on them. They were constantly working. They didn't have a lot of tools at their disposal. So one of the things they used to do for discipline, which was never okay, but they would just wake recruits up in the middle of the night and then go march them to this place called Ribbon Creek, which was behind the rifle range. And they would just throw them in the creek and make them swim in the middle of the night and then march them back. Well, one night they went to go do that, and they had really bad tides, and 3 kids ended up drowning out there in Ribbon Creek behind the rifle range. And there's a whole investigation started. So basically they were like, it's really hot and humid down there. They need a symbol of authority. And we had this cover back in World War I. Let's give them this. It'll help keep the sun off of them and be a symbol of authority. So that incident sparked a bunch of different changes on Parris Island, and the campaign cover was one of them.
Boy, I never knew that was true. I heard that story when I was on Parris Island.
I'd never heard it.
That a drill instructor some time ago marched a bunch of recruits into the water, and they all drowned. I didn't know it was 3. It was an actual real event that took place, but in the 1950s. How about that?
They wrote a book about it. I don't remember the book off the top of my head. And I believe that guy got court-martialed, and he didn't end up like getting kicked out for it. I believe he's still retired. I know that like once he got him in there, he realized that he had made a very big mistake and was trying to swim out there and save as many as he could.
Oh, dude, that would be a terrible experience, especially if people had already been doing that before you. Like the other drill instructors are taking their recruits out there to do training, and then it just so happens to be your platoon that the tide is terrible. Oh my, that would be unbelievably terrible. But I'm sorry I interrupted your story about drill instructor school, but like that right there caught my interest. I had to hear where the Smokey Bear hat came from, dude. The campaign cover.
So you have to go back in DI school. You have to redo every event and everything that recruits are going to do. You have to take the initial and final testing that they do. You have to do the prac app. You don't go back to the rifle range because you had to have you've shot the rifle range however many times before you got there. So they're just expecting that you know that. You stood, I don't know, I think there was like 10 uniform inspections, and some of them were random. There was like, they would just be like, hey, you got 15 minutes, run back to the barracks, change and be in formation in this uniform. So you went through a lot of that. You had to do the rappel tower again, which no big deal. But then you did a lot of case studies too. Well, you did a couple of them on incidents like that of drill instructor misconduct, because it can come up real quick. And what's really surprising too is when you got used to being an infantryman, you could just do things, right? Not so much as a drill instructor. You would be surprised at how sometimes they just have their hands completely tied on certain issues. Like you're not just going to be able to go out and be like, hey, well, I want to work on my kids really suck at this, so let me go out and teach them how to do X, Y, and Z. Like every minute of every day is planned for and is accounted for a recruit. And you don't really have you do have some of like the senior drill instructor time, but you don't nearly have. I'll give you an example. When I first got to the fleet or to Parris Island, they said this thing like, oh, you can't take a recruit anywhere because you don't have a BDR qual. And I was like, what is a BDR qual? And it was like basic daily routine. And it was how when you got up in the morning, They counted you off. They got you dressed by the numbers. You fell out in formation. You went to chow. They got you to the first training event. And then in the evening, when they started getting you undressed, they showered you. It changed you, threw you in the rack, all that stuff, right? That was the basic day routine. And I was like, I got to have a qualification to tell the recruit to put socks on. It was weird to me. And because I don't possess a qualification in which gets a recruit dressed, as a experienced sergeant from the infantry, I cannot walk this kid 500 feet by myself to medical.
That's crazy. I never knew that. So
as a 19-year-old Lance Corporal, I could just decide that I wanted to launch a mortar round at this dude.
Right.
Yes.
But you can't take a recruit to chow.
Exactly. And they were like, oh, well, and then you start to see like, they were like, well, look, that's you, but what about the rest of the Marine Corps? It's like, it's the Marine Corps. The Marine's a Marine. Aren't we teaching that to recruits? So if I get a sergeant or a staff sergeant, I don't care what part of the Marine Corps you come from. That's a sergeant. That's a staff sergeant. It's a gunny. Take this kid 500 feet, drop him off at the medical tent with a little chit that says he needs to go to sick call. And that's that. So you have
Now, I got a question about that moment where you're talking about waking up, getting dressed, morning cleanup, going to the chow hall. It seemed as if first or lead series and follow series would sometimes flip-flop, or I don't know what the schedule was, but it seemed like if it was our turn to go first, my drill instructors there was always a way to get to that chow hall first. Is there some kind of competition that you're doing with the other drill instructors in the squad bay there to try to get out first?
Absolutely there was. It has since changed. I'm sure those things probably still exist down there, but I can remember we used to get 4:15 hatch times. So your recruits better be standing outside the front hatch of the chow hall at 4:15. I mean, that's flying, especially if you had laundry or something to do that day. But the rifle range is really when it started happening. I remember it was my second cycle. I was a third hat so the third drill instructor in the line, and it was my responsibility for the rifle range. Everything was on me. And I can remember my heavy or experienced drill instructor was like, hey, dog, you got him. You better be the first one to chow. I'm like, all right, I got this. I follow these kids out at like 4:04. We fly over to the chow hall. I get them in at 4:07. I'm like, that was it. Got them. And I look over, and the heavy from follow series, who ended up being my senior, my next cycle, just looked at me and started smiling. And I could not figure out how I get to the chow hall at 4:07, and his boys are almost done eating at 4:07.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. So wait a minute. There's so many things. I'm like, you're saying so many things that I just have a million questions to ask. I feel like this is going to have to be a two-parter. There's no way. Okay, so I'm going to deviate back from the competition for just a second because we blew past drill instructor school. But okay, then this can maybe tie back into drill instructor school because I still have questions about that too. Right. I have so many questions. But so you're talking about like their daily routine, and you got to be qualified for that a second ago. Mm-hmm. And what you ran down, like the morning routine and then how it works at night, it's every day like that. It is every day. That's how you start out. You wake up in the morning, you get online, you count off, like make sure, like accountability, make sure everybody's there. You make your bed, you clean, like get dressed, you do a quick field day, and then you're out the door for get in formation for whatever you have to do that day. And then at night, I have no brass, trash, or live ammunition. But that being said, I know like days will change. Like there's different training events that you have to take these guys to and stuff. But is there almost like a curriculum or an overall strategy as to how boot camp, I guess, is run? Like something that you learn while you're going through drill instructor school that kind of sums it all up. Like I'm missing the word I want to, like an outer frame, I guess, of what your day is going to be scheduled around, and like how each phase of boot camp works. Like obviously first phase, most of the time you're learning the really basic stuff and you're getting thrashed all day. Second phase is rifle. Third phase, you're almost to the point of being a Marine. But what's the overall like framework for that, the training, I guess, how they break that down day by day and then phase by phase?
So drill instructor school is completely based off of first phase, right? Because if you can get through, we expect you to show up as a brand new drill instructor and be able to enforce discipline and get through first phase. Everything else, a senior can kind of lead the way and pull you back and give you instruction on, okay, this is how you're going to change the way that you do business in second phase and third phase. And now fourth phase, there's a fourth phase now. So that's completely structured around that. Drill instructor school. So the recruit training order is the other big part of drill instructor school. This is the order on how to conduct recruit training. And they give you it's like a booklet. It's almost like I don't know if you remember the 3-tac-11, how it was like a pocket size.
Yeah.
That's pretty much exactly how they would hand you a recruit training order. And you would read that thing verbatim, and you had to take a test on it every single cycle. And I can't remember verbatim anymore. It's been a while since I've had to take that test, but it would tell you how recruit training is conducted in a demanding and professional manner, right? So everything is based on that. And each phase kind of has goals that it tries to achieve without really saying that it has goals. So like the end of first phase used to be, when I was a green belt, was all of your recruits have completed tan belt in Marine Corps martial arts program. They have all completed swim qual, and you've completed and passed the initial drill assessment. So everything kind of built to that, but what you were trying to achieve as a drill instructor was just getting that recruit broken down as much as possible. So the basic level drill instructor, the new guy on the team, he is basically just enforcing whatever the experienced drill instructor is telling these recruits to do. That's how it's broken down. So every day it does have a training cycle, and a lot of times new drill instructors get into the chow to chow mentality. I just got to make it to the next chow. Okay, so we got him a chow. Whew. Okay, now one more. Okay, now I got to make it to the final chow and then get them to bed. And you kind of get in that mentality of it. But as they start to grasp the way that a recruit is supposed to conduct themselves, then you as a drill instructor, right around the end of swim qual, you are now just maintaining what you've created as far as the discipline aspect. And now you're just trying to teach them things and hold them accountable for their actions. So I need to teach you how to be a basically trained Marine, at the same time maintain the level of discipline that I have and hold you accountable for your actions and inactions. And then every once in a while, turn the heat on to get a little reset.
Yeah, just to remind them what's what.
Right.
Dude, that's crazy. So, okay, that kind of leads me into like my first big question, I guess on a philosophical level, but how hard is it to take a guy off the street, just a civilian the day before, and turn them into or train them into being like a well-disciplined Marine? And when is the time where you really start seeing the change start to take place? Because I can remember feeling like my mentality was changing, and you get to a point in boot camp where you're like, I got this. You know what I mean? You can still get thrashed, you can still get sandpitted and all that stuff, but you get to a point where you're like, all right, bring it on. I can take it all day. You'll get tired before me, kind of a thing. So when do you see that happen, and how hard is it getting them there successfully, especially like your first few times doing it?
The biggest thing is kind of like, I used to try to think of everything doctrinally. So the Marine Corps has Marine Corps Doctrinal Publication 1, Warfighting. And I would take that literally into anything that I was trying to do. And it goes in there and it tells you that the chief incalculable in war is the human will. So it depends on how bad does this kid want it. Is it one of those kids that was like us that, you know, joined the Marine Corps because there's a war on and we're about it. That's what we're going to go do. That kid is a hell of a lot easier to deal with than the kid who is, I dropped out of college because I couldn't figure it out. I don't really want to do this, but I don't have anything else to do. So I'm going to do this for 4 years, keep my mom happy.
Right. There's like a desire. There's like a desire there for them to be.
How bad do you want to wear the Eagle Globe and Anchor and earn it? It is a huge part in that. But typically, after first phase, they're pretty broken down, pretty good. I would say that it really starts to come together for some of them right after first phase because they've done initial drill, so they know how to wear a uniform the right way. They're starting to see themselves differently from other recruits. Like when they go to church, they can start to see that they look and feel better than the first phase kids that are sitting there. But again, for some of them, it has to be at a high point, not really high point, but like their point of success. So maybe they've never shot a rifle before and they've just qualified and they are blown away. Like, I was able to do this. Some of them, it happens on the confidence course. You know, like I didn't think I would ever be able to do that, but I did it. Like the rappel tower, gas chamber. And they start to kind of fire separately. And then all of a sudden, when you start into third phase, you start to realize, yeah, I have Marines now. They just got to go to the crucible.
Right. Because that's about, third phase is about the time I feel like I started being like, all right, dude, because you got your sleeves rolled, your blouse and your boots. You're not walking around in, first phase you're walking around in camis with tennis shoes and a glow strap, like a reflective belt that you hang cross-bodied. You look ridiculous walking around, and you have no name tapes.
I think it clicked for me right after initial drill. It clicked for me, and right into second phase, and then after at the rifle range, I was 100%. I was in flow at that point, and just keeping my head up and keeping going from there. Looking forward to certain nights certain drill instructors were different every night, so like certain things would be more difficult. We got to figure out how to manipulate it in a way so that it was okay for us, which brings me to my next question on a lighter note is the best comedians, I think, are on Parris Island.
Oh my God, hands down.
Drill instructors, there's so many things that were said and done there. I cannot even remember all of them at all, but like, do you see that, or do you agree with that there are some really funny people that are drill instructors? Because, you guys all say a lot of crazy, cool stuff.
Absolutely. And I think it comes from, you're Marine at heart. So we're all kind of our own special kind of jackass a little bit, right?
Right.
And then you go into the drill instructor world and you just become so quick at pointing things out. Like I can just tell this kid's thumb is not along his trouser seam, his palms aren't rolled back, his heels aren't together, feet out. I can just look up and see it now because it's so ingrained in me. And so when you get the speed of that like thought process, plus who you inherently are at heart, some of it just rolls. And I've said
yes.
Instructors are trying to like get their way in the back to like try to attempt to cover up from laughing, even, just like how you remember like drill instructors like trying to hide. Something was so funny the drill instructor could not keep it together. He's like trying to laugh in his cover or something.
Yep.
Yeah, dude, that was my favorite part of boot camp. If you got to witness a drill instructor crack for just a second, because it would only be for a split second, and you could always tell because they'd have to turn around or they'd cover their face somehow. Like they would, because they're not supposed to. You guys aren't supposed to show, like, you're not supposed to break that character, right? That military bearing is supposed to stay at all times. And that leads me up to a kind of a follow-up to that. But there had to be, out of all the all the cycles you did and all the platoons you did, there had to be a few recruits that were just, dude, they had to have like a direct line to your funny bone, like the way they moved or whatever they did. So that being said, dude, one, if you can think of a story off the top of your head, I would love to hear like a funny recruit, like a recruit doing something funny. But two, especially if you don't, what is that like having to try to keep your bearing when something, because there are times in boot camp where there are just super funny things going on like that. I was pointing it out to my wife. I had her like, this has been a while ago, but we watched Full Metal Jacket just so she could see what the boot camp scene was like. Because I was like, that's the most accurate depiction of boot camp you're going to find in like a Hollywood movie. You know what I mean? For the most part. I mean, they only show the senior drill instructor for the most part, but Arlie Ermey being a drill instructor, he did a very good job at that role. Absolutely. And the scene where they have what's the guy's the big guy that he just hones in on from Pyle. Yes. They have him marching with his rifle. It's backwards. So he's got his barrel down instead of the buttstock down. He's got his hat on backwards. His pants are like down around his ankles, and he's sucking his thumb. And he's out there doing close order drill with the rest of the platoon like that. Like, how would you keep a straight face when that's happening? Because stuff like that does happen. And as a recruit, it's almost impossible. Like, you're just like, thank God they're not looking at me right now, because I'd get lit up, But for a drill instructor, all eyes are on you. How do you keep it together in those situations?
As you know, sometimes you can't. Sometimes the short answer is you just can't, and you got to get it back somehow. There's always a funny recruit somehow. Not very often do you have a platoon and you don't think back of something funny. But I think more often than not, though, when I think about a lot of those things, I think of specific drill instructors that were just absolutely hilarious, but they were also the ones that were able to keep it together the best. So we'll have me dying, and but at the same time that they're literally killing this recruit.
That's good. That's good. That's like a comedian not breaking. Like, they're like a good comedian not laughing at the joke, Right.
They're literally killing a recruit. Like, the recruit's like screaming for their life. Like, they just want everything to stop. I'm dying laughing because it is absolutely hilarious. And it's one of those situations that it's like, if you don't know about it until you're in it. And then it's even hard to tell the stories without laughing.
Let's do this, because this will kind of bring it into focus for us. What is it like when you are first? This is a two-part question because I cannot not talk about this. But the drill instructors standing around the tree, the big freaking tree they have out in front of the drill instructor school barracks on Parris Island. Is it still there? Do they still yell at it? They getting this. When I was there, we'd be marching by, on our way to do whatever, because I was in 2nd Battalion, so we'd be marching by, and they'd have a line of drill instructors going around this huge tree, right? And they're all like, I don't know, double arms length away from each other, aligned around this tree. And they would take turns yelling at the tree with knife hands. And I used to think, what the heck, man? That's how they have those crazy voices. They're just yelling all day. Is that something that still happens?
No, that didn't happen when I was down there. DI school, you would do these things that were called teachbacks. So you would recite every drill movement per Marine Corps Order 5060. You would know it verbatim, and you would walk. They would have you march out 21 paces about face and stand in this awkward, like half parade rest, half knife hand, and scream it at the instructor, and that's how you got evaluated. And you had to do, I think it was like 7 of them a week or something like that. You had different blocks of them, and you had to demonstrate it while you were doing it. It's oddly similar to how like recruits do certain things as far as like practical application when it came to
the weapons inspection and all that stuff.
You would like snap and like scream this whole. It was basically the same thing except for every drill movement verbatim. One of the things that's extremely valuable to a drill instructor is his voice. That's his weapon, and you have to learn how to use it. So as awful as that is, it's almost entirely necessary because you have to learn how to scream. You can't just start screaming with your vocal cords and expect yourself to not blow your voice out and then anybody to hear you anyway. It's got to come from your diaphragm and the way that you project your voice and use it effectively. You really have to learn how to do that, or you're just going to be stuck with recruits that have no idea what you're saying ever.
When does that get dialed in for you?
Again, from what we used to tell hats when they got to the companies, like, hey, you're going to be loud or you're going to be fast. So you might have a guy that it takes him a couple cycles of just sprinting around and around and around, repeating himself 9,000 times because nobody can hear him. But in some guys, it just naturally happens. So I would say you at least got to have, for the average guy, get a cycle under your belt and then break your voice down. It's almost like a muscle, like break it down enough and it'll come back a little bit stronger. And it's just the way that for some guys, they can't develop it as quickly and they kind of suffer for it. But some guys, they learn it enough to be effective. And then as they move up and progress and build it, they aren't screaming as much.
Yeah.
So like I can remember, you guys could probably remember being in boot camp and you could not hear a word that your new drill instructor was saying.
No, they were definitely the most quiet one. And I got a brand new staff sergeant kill hat assigned to us, I think in the middle of second phase, like while we were at the rifle range. And he was an awesome drill instructor, so this is no knock on him. But it was his first cycle, and his voice would go, like, especially the first few weeks he was there, he would lose his voice like every 2 days. Just because all they're doing is yelling all day, especially the kill hats, man. They're just sprinting around and yelling. That's what their job is. Yeah. So I'm surprised to hear, though, that it's usually for most people, they won't have that voice dialed in by the time they finish drill instructor school. It's usually after they get a cycle or two under their belt.
Yeah. And then you could, when you would have guys like I'm sure you've heard of like the frog voice that guys.
I was going to ask you, did you ever get yourself a frog voice?
How does that happen?
There was times where I definitely used a frog voice. I wasn't proud of it, but there was no other way that they were going to hear me. And it was like, I'm either going to sound stupid or I'm going to look stupid because these recruits don't hear me. So I'll sound dumb for a little bit, but these kids are going to hear and do what I tell them to do. But it was just because that's the only sound that you could make.
Really?
Because your voice is so gone that that sound is very easy to make and it's very easy to hear. So that was basically all you had.
I thought drill instructors were doing it on purpose. I thought it was a technique that you had to.
Because most of my drill instructors had it the whole time. That's a great peek behind the curtain, man.
Yeah, it is. I thought it was a learned skill.
Some places and let them hear you frogging, and you're gonna have a bad time. So I would do it occasionally just because I had nothing left.
Right.
But then the longer you go, it's like you're heavy. You've worked so many cycles. You're like an unstoppable machine at that point. And then as a senior, you don't really scream that much. So when I come out and say something, every recruit anywhere heard it because I know how to project my voice. I know how to use my diaphragm. Plus, they want to hear what I have to say because it's usually stop or something.
Right.
You're saving the day, or you're about to ruin the day worse than anybody. That's the power. That's the power of the senior drill instructors. Most of the time, you're saving them from a beat down kind of, but every once in a while, dude, you got to bring the pain.
Oh yeah.
So let's get into that. What's it like graduating from what's the graduation process like from from drill instructor school, and then what's the process from there to showing up to your first cycle, your first company, and putting a platoon of recruits through starting day one, phase one of training.
Yeah, so drill instructor school, the graduation's like extremely formal. They joke and they say that, Parris Island is the most professional place in the Marine Corps. That's a lie, but they like to act like it. So, big old graduation ceremony. And for a lot of guys, it was the biggest achievement they have in Marine Corps. For, grunts were just like, okay, dude, I've graduated like 900 schools. Like, give me my piece of paper and let me go. Right. But you have like a naive sense of, ooh, it's over, right? worst is behind me. And then you check into your battalion and guys start to kind of say some weird stuff to you. And then you get to the training company. And I was very fortunate with the battalion that I went to in my first company in that battalion. Because I was a 2nd battalion hat. My first company I went to was golf. So I did 3 cycles in golf company. And it's kind of a different beast because your recruits get up at 4. So you have to be on deck 15 minutes before the lights, right? So 3:45, you're there on deck. But there's a bunch of other stuff that has to happen before those recruits ever wake up. So if there's PT that day, the PT field better be set up. You have safety gear that goes in the back of the truck. So all this, you have 3 big coolers that got to be full of ice, the 5 of the big 5-gallon jugs full of water. So you get all that filled up. So people are setting the field up, the PT field, if you have that, or, if there's box chow in the morning for whatever reason, you got to go to the chow hall and pick it up and then be back by 3:45 in the morning.
It's an early day right there.
That's something you don't know.
And as a kill had a brand new guy. So real quick, I'm going to break this down for everybody that doesn't know. You have nicknames for your drill instructors that you get assigned to you. So the one that's in charge of everything is your senior drill instructor. And you can tell that it's the senior drill instructor because he wears a black leather belt, thick black leather belt. You can have anywhere from 2 more or 4 more. I've seen some platoons that have 4 other hats, but like 4 other drill instructors besides the senior. And the most senior of the leftover drill instructors is typically going to be your heavy hat. And the heavy hat, I think, is the one that he spends all the time teaching you things. Like he's really he is the practical day in, day out teacher, I feel like. Whereas like the senior drill instructor it's like the dad of the platoon. Like he is taking care of everything. And he'll impart wisdom on you. Usually get like the school circle conversations with your senior drill instructor. You get to, you do like, I don't know about you guys, but in like 3rd phase when we would do every once in a while, because kids would get mailed like candy bars or protein bars, and the drill instructors take all those, right? You can't have that while you're there. But like one day a week or something, if we were on point and doing everything right, the senior drill instructor would come in at the end of the day and put us in a school circle, talk to us about something, and he would let us have a protein bar, or a part of a protein bar. So like you get a lot of those kind of experiences with your senior. You don't get that with any of the other drill instructors. that doesn't happen with everybody else. But the heavy hat is like, in my mind, he was the teacher. He spent like after on Black Friday, after the senior drill instructor speech, it's the heavy hat that's like, yelling out all the commands as far as I remember. And then anybody else after that, so whether it's 1 more drill instructor or if it's 2 or 3 more drill instructors, they're all what we call kill hats. And their job is to do just that. Like they just thrash you. Like they're yelling at you and making you, push up, get up, dump this out, kick this over there, go get it, get back, yell louder, like all these different things you have to do. Their job is to make boot camp chaotic. And I feel like it's because a lot of the times they're the newest drill instructors. Is that a pretty good summation of how it works?
So the senior is the daddy. He's more or less, when you want to think about it in terms of everything should be set up like an infantry company. So like that's your platoon commander, basically. Mm-hmm. And your heavy's basically like your platoon sergeant. So you'll hear heavy, you'll hear experienced drill instructor, and in the West Coast, you'll hear the J.
The J. That's interesting.
It is their platoon as a heavy. It's their platoon, but they're my recruits as a senior. So that's kind of one way to think of it. The senior's ultimately responsible, but the heavy drives the bus, right? So if you can remember, being in a platoon and you had that one go-to NCO, like he drives the bus.
Yeah.
Right. That's the heavy. And then you have like your 3rd hat, the next guy in line. He's responsible for teaching you everything that the heavy doesn't teach you. So the heavy is going to teach you how to wear your uniform for the most part. The boss of the senior, he'll fine tune it and here and there. As a senior, I usually just picked up the pieces and kind of put my own spin on some things. That would try to take some stress off the boys. But Yeah, so your third hat would teach like rifle range. He would teach general knowledge. They would teach land nav stuff. Anything that the heavy wasn't required to teach as far as like uniforms and drill, the third hat would do. Now the heavy's also right gear, right place, right time. Your fourth hat is I take kids to medical, I fill safety gear, I IT recruits in the pit. Right?
I had one of those.
So that's kind of the breakdown. A lot has changed down there. So when I got there was the same old, up until my first cycle as a senior, was the same old way that we got trained, right? Your parents send you protein bars. We put them in a Foot Locker and we pass them out occasionally. We started to, because drill instructors are super competitive. In good companies, the drill instructors, they're really tight, but they're also very competitive with each other. So we would like feed these kids all kinds of protein to try to like bulk them up and like get their PFP numbers up because we wanted to win.
Get a few extra pull-ups in there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're not so much anymore with the difference in kid that ships down there now. Like how we were talking about this kid wants to go to war. This kid just doesn't have anything else, or he, is there for the wrong reasons or whatever. There's a big difference between when we went through too, as far as training efficiency, because we were going to war. These kids aren't. And there's some other incidents. They're recycling a lot more kids into training than we ever experienced.
Right.
So you have kids getting dropped and their parents would be all upset. Be like, well, I sent you like $200 worth of protein bars. They better go with my kid.
Really?
Right.
But it shouldn't be. So that's interesting to me because the Marine Corps is very specific about that. You have to make that phone call when you get there initially. And I'm pretty sure even in that initial phone call, it's like, don't send me anything, right? You like, do not send me food or any kind of thing like that because I can't have it. You're at boot camp. You can't have any of that. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. So then they did away with it. You're not sending them that stuff anymore. And the senior has certain days that he passes out Cliff Bars.
Ugh.
So a couple kids ruined it for everybody.
That's
Snack
the way
time.
it works, man. That's the way it works.
Soon it'll be jelly donuts.
Yeah, I can remember because when I went on quota, right, my quota time, I did 3 months at receiving, and then I did 9 months at RSP, which is recruit separation platoon. I can remember getting those kids off a bus in this silver chairs, making that phone call, and it used to just be mass chaos in that room where those phones were.
Yeah.
You have kids that have been there for 20 seconds and just getting it in, right? But now they put a stop to that. So there's no screaming and yelling in the background of the phone call.
No, get out of here. Listen, that was one of the best mind games that I got played on me when I was at boot camp.
Yeah.
I showed up there, dude, and initially it was just me and one other kid. We showed up on a van, which is, I know now is highly unusual, right? And to make matters worse, there were 3 kids in the back of that van that were going to Fort Jackson for Army boot camp. So I feel like my receiving drill instructor really cranked up the volume just to be a little more intimidating. He was also a monster of a man, too. And anyways, long story short, hey, we're getting thrashed. There's like 3 drill instructors for the 2 of us in there. And they're all going ham, dude. I mean, this is your first exposure to the frog voice in person. I thought it was like a demon voice, dude. It was freaking me out. I was like, what have I done to myself here? And you get in there, you get on the box where they look at the arc of your foot, I guess. Is that what that thing is for? Where you stand on that? It's a
mirror box.
They're trying to see if you're flat-footed, or they don't. Drill instructors don't have anything to do with that anymore. But
back when I got there, they had me get on that. It had a light coming up out of it, and they looked at my feet, and then I got off that. The phones are like right now, like on the other side of the hallway on that cinder block wall. There's like, I don't know, 7 of them or 8 of them or something. And I had told my mom before I left for boot camp that day, I was like, you have to be by the phone because I will have to make a phone call when I get there, and they will not let me leave the phone until you answer it. Like, I can't just leave you a voicemail. You got to answer the phone. And she's like, okay, right? Okay, I got it. So I get over there, and I'm lucky when I first get to the phone because the 3 drill instructors are all focused on the other kid that's there. He's on the little foot box thing, getting his feet like inspected, and they're all losing it at him, dude. They all 3 of them. And so I first dial, I'm like, please answer, because I just want the thing I want to do is get through the phone call without the attention coming back to me, so that my mom doesn't hear the yelling directly into the mouthpiece of the phone. You know, I call, it rings, no answer. I'm thinking, Mom, God dang it. I told you got to be ready for a phone call. And as soon as I hung it up and went to dial again, dude, I got sniped. They saw it, and all 3 of them came over and they're yelling. I called again, no answer. I hung it up. I picked it up. I dialed it again. She finally answered on that 3rd one. And I know she had to hear like all the yelling going on. I'm thinking to myself, this is just insanity. I have never read a statement faster than that in my life. I got through that thing so fast and hung up, man. It's like, I got to get off this phone call.
Not only that, and the drill instructors that are present at that time, but it, when I showed up, it was an entire busload of us. So once we got into that point, you had to learn how to do the barbershop line very quickly and get you all in there. But everybody that's reading off this card that's in that box is also yelling. So it's chaos on top of chaos. But there was so many of us. And I think we ultimately ended up picking up with 92 and graduating with 80. Is that where you're at now, Larter? Like, you still picking up large platoons, or is that something that fluctuates?
Depends on the time of year. So in your summer months, you have the kids that are fresh out of high school. Those platoons are huge. So they're 92 for 1st and 2nd Battalion. 3rd Battalion has bigger squad base, so they'll up them to 98. But once you start getting into the winter months, the bulk of the shipping's been done. I can remember my 2nd senior cycle, I had 38 kids in my platoon.
No way. You would have so much attention on you if you were a recruit with 38.
On that cycle, because I was just, smoking.
That's the way you got to do it.
And in the winter time too, you don't have the flag conditions like you had in the summer. So like the summer months, you had the different flags denoting the temperatures. It was the wet globe bulb temperature, so it took some humidity into account. No flag or green flag meant game on. Recruits going to get to business. Yellow flag was like after training day 10, same thing. Recruits going to get to business, right? Red flag was like, you weren't getting IT'd outside,
right?
Black flag was like you're not going to be outside unless
marching a chow or something.
Marching a chow and back or something. But in the wintertime, you don't have any of those flag conditions. So any kid can get it at any time, as long as it's not, within the chow window or something like that.
That's so crazy, dude. Do you love America Fog of War and want more of it? If so, Brett and I would love it if you became a member of the America Fog of War Patreon. Visit americafogofwar.com and follow the link Become a Member located in the menu at the top of the homepage, and pick from one of our 3 membership subscription options. As a member, you can enjoy ad-free early access to all of our free episodes, like this one, as well as gain access to not 1, but 2 extra episodes a month, and join either Brett or myself on a monthly Zoom call where you can help us make decisions pertaining to future episodes of America Fog of War, discuss war movies and books, and talk about some of your favorite American battles and campaigns, hip pocket class style. Your membership subscriptions are what enable us to bring you the content you love every month. Help us grow this podcast and become part of the team today at americafogofwar.com. So, all right. So let me ask you this then, because we talked about like when you see the change and all that stuff, and we've talked a little bit about you showing up as a first time drill instructor. As a heavy, because I didn't know you had to spend time as a heavy hat before you became a senior drill instructor. So as a heavy, you've been there a while, you've got experience, you know the game, you're driving the bus. What's your first cycle like as a heavy? And take us from Black Friday. Kind of give us a little description of Black Friday in case there's people out there that don't know, and then take us from there. Kind of a quick overview of all the phases and what you're kind of experiencing with the recruits and the problems that you're running into, and how it transforms. I'm very interested in what you're worried about also as the heavy hat. Like what are you paying attention to? Take us into like teaching the recruits how to do close order drill. I feel like that's as much time as we spent on it in my platoon. I feel like that's got to be a challenging aspect of the job, is getting everybody to do that properly, because there's a lot of kids that are very uncoordinated that show up to boot camp, and you got to be pretty coordinated and have to be able to time yourself on everybody. You don't have any kind of metronome or anything keeping you on beat, so it almost has to get ingrained. I'm interested in all of that as a first time through a cycle as a heavy hat.
So the heavy is the heartbeat of the platoon. Everything is pivoted on the heavy. So you guys were talking about Black Friday, which used to be a West Coast term because we used to pick up on Saturdays.
Gotcha.
Now it's Fridays. To where the receiving drill instructors will turn you over to your team of drill instructors. And your senior will come out and give you the senior drill instructor speech, run through some things. Then he's going to go away. And from that day on until training day 1, your heavy is out there teaching you. He's getting you set up for training. So he's getting your gear put where he wants it. He's putting your day packs together. He's getting your camis. This is how we're going to mark everything. This is how your platoon functions. This is how we fall out of the house. This is how we secure our rifles, that kind of thing. And forming for a heavy is miserable. It's a miserable experience because you are working 16, 18 hours straight, no breaks. You're on the boys. You're going to get some breaks here and there, but it's a miserable existence as a heavy during that 4-day period. Sunday you'll get to go to, they go to church. So the heavy gets a little bit of a nap in there. And then after that, so training day 1 rolls around. Me as a heavy, I'm worried about, one, do I have the right gear for these kids for the day? That is the number one thing that a heavy does, is right gear, right place, right time. He's taking them everywhere. The common misconception about drill is that it's the heavy's like number one priority. It shouldn't be. Sometimes it is, because like you are the logistics of the platoon is the heavy. But he's also responsible for teaching them drill. And what the sad thing is, he could not be very good at the logistical aspect, but very good at teaching them drill. And he's going to get evaluated based on how they did at drill.
Gotcha.
It could be quite a pain to get these boys to just be able to walk the right way in step. You got kids that, let's face it, they ain't got no rhythm. They don't.
Yeah. Well, and you're so used to doing it too. By this point, you're like, dude, it is easy. Just do what I'm doing. That's
where your senior has to come in, because your heavy should be worried about the masses. Your heavy's worried about talking to 92 kids and getting most of them doing the right thing, right? Your junior green belts, they're running around making those corrections, right? Individual corrections on these kids. Arm swing, how you're carrying the rifle, how you're pivoting in and out of columns and stuff like that. That's what they're doing. And then your boss, your senior is sitting in the back, kind of watching how everything's going, telling drills, like the new guys, hey, this is what he wants you to go fix that, pulling off kids that are just completely 100% lost. Like they say left face and this kid does a handstand. Like, okay, that's a senior's problem. Let's get him.
Right.
That's going to medical on initial drill.
That's fantastic. I was always curious if stuff like that actually happened, because I remember them threatening to do that with different kids when I was going through, but to send so everybody knows, when you're in boot camp as a recruit, you have 2 drill phases that you get tested on. You get your initial drill, which is at the end of first phase, and then you get your final drill, which is at the end of third phase. That's That's actually before you go. That's before you go out for the Crucible? You do final drill.
Well, when we went through, it was training day 62. It was the day once you finished final drill, you went back to the house, you packed your pack for Crucible.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Morning.
And there's a big difference between the two. I remember like in the initial drill, I'm pretty sure the drill instructor can call out like your steps, like left, right.
No, they do that
layout.
too, the biggest difference is initial drill is more basic drill movements,
Mm-hmm.
and the junior drill instructor is the one who's leading the platoon out there.
Oh, that's
And then
right.
the senior takes you out for final drill.
And the final drill, you have the marching manual, but you don't have a marching manual in initial drill, do you?
No. There was some changes. Like I know my second senior cycle, we did final drill on training day 31, which I really liked because it got it out of the way. And I would always be like, yeah, good. Now we can go do Marine stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But it has gone to like training day 50 something now because now there's 4 phases. So now
You're saying that.
They spend 2 weeks on the island as Marines after they finish a Crucible.
Ooh, how miserable. And what do they do in those 2 weeks?
So they do like MOS panels and stuff. So basically, one of the things they'll do is they'll pull together guys from even other battalions and stuff. But usually, I say your company's graduating, all the infantry guys are going to come be in one room. And on one squad bay, doesn't matter what platoon they're from, we're going to smash them all together, put them up there, and they're going to go talk to a handful of grunts, right? We're going to put the air wing guys on one deck, admin people. They'll split them all up, so that way they're actually sitting there asking questions about what's going to happen in the fleet, what's my follow-on training, how am I successful and follow on stuff down the road. It's like, well, I can't answer that question for an air wing guy, right?
Yeah.
You can answer that question for a grunt. So, and sometimes they'll pull guys from weapons, which, those guys are hit or miss out there just based upon, not to crap on those guys, but it's basically just, hit or miss on what type of guys you get out there based on just what type of billet it is itself. But
Yeah.
yeah, they'll do that. They'll do some field event deals. There's actually a funny picture of me as a senior. They're doing like a stretcher carry, and somebody had the bright idea, like, yeah, they're going to carry the seniors at this leg of this relay race on stretcher. But we had this one dude who, he was kind of an ass. And his platoon, his recruits dropped him.
Oh no.
They dropped him, and he's bald, and he hits his head when he falls down, and he's like trying to hurry up, pick me up, let's go. And he's got dirt smeared all over the side of his face, and I am dying laughing on top of this stretcher. And we're not laying down. I'm like sitting up on top of it.
Yeah.
Like I am, and they're carrying me. So, but the picture is just me laughing, carried by 4 brand new Marines. I got so many text messages about that. Like, oh, see, you're hard at work over there. I was like, no, dude, you don't understand. Like, the perfect dude just got face planted by his recruits.
And that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Well, I find all that so interesting. So that's because from my memory, the heavy hat was the one that spent most of the time with us doing drill. Like I can remember being out there in first phase, and it's still like very close to forming. Like I don't think we'd been to I think we were on our way to the chapel there, over by near the 2nd Battalion barracks to go do some kind of class in it. And I remember him like, teaching us how to lean back and like to drive your heels and all the little ditties you do. And that's interesting how it's supposed to play out and what their focus should be. That being said, though, what is your view? Because I've always been under the Marine Corps is the only branch that really focuses on close order drill the way it does. Like the Army does a little bit, but not anywhere close to what the Marine Corps is doing. Like they don't have a drill test out, like initial drill inspection and final drill inspection, to the point that when a new Marine finishes boot camp, those jokers can drill good. Like they're very good at it. They snap, everything looks so crisp. And What's your opinion on the close order drill aspect of boot camp? I've always been under the impression that it's really good at instilling like that immediate willingness and obedience to all orders without hesitation and precision. So like it teaches them a little bit of situational awareness. Like you are expected to get it correct to this exact point. There's no like, well, that was close. You know what I mean? Like you've got to be exactly on. What's your opinion on close order drill and how it plays out and as part of the training?
So I like it from a indoctrination standpoint. There's no better way to indoctrinate a group of young men and women into doing something other than making them all do the same thing the same way. So it's very good for that. Obviously, we need to have the military manner in which we move people from A to B. Right. So if you were just trying to move, you got a 92 man platoon, you got 75 kids in a series, which, 3 platoons in a series. So think about your series trying to go somewhere and you got 275 kids walking around all willy nilly. Right. So we got to have a box. Right. I get it. Point A to B, instilling the very basic level of military discipline and moving in an orderly fashion. That initial indoctrination, you're in the Marine Corps now kind of mentality. And, it might be hard to understand for somebody that's never went through it, but for you guys, you totally get it, right? Like you felt like, okay, now I'm really part of it when you were doing it.
Right. Then the better you get at it, the more you're like, all right, I'm getting there. Things start really clicking, and you especially. I remember being so excited to learn how to do inspection arms when I was in boot camp. I thought that was the coolest looking drill move you could do. When they do that, they snap it up and look through, and then you bring it back down and click pop. Did you guys have the ditty, the click pop ditty?
Felt good doing that. Felt really good to do that.
I don't, but you do. It's almost like it's a way. At least when I was going through, it was like a way to gauge where I was at in the process. You know what I mean? Like I could notice my progression based off how good we were at drill. And then by the time you finish, you're full-fledged Marine. You're like, all right, we got this locked in.
And like it really made it ingrained things in you that you didn't know, as far as like you always knew where your rifle was. You were used to taking your rifle with you every single place that you went. Right. You're used to manipulating that rifle, even though, I used to have a saying that I used to tell, the drill masters, was, left shoulder arms never save no one's life in combat.
Nice.
I used to call them like the dance moms and stuff. The drill master was a guy. There's one in every battalion, and the regiment had one, and they were the ones that evaluated your platoons and unit leaders during the drill inspections. I used to kind of joke with them a little bit because I understood all of that I just went over. Like, yeah, we do need this, but I always felt like besides moving kids from A to B after first phase, I don't need it.
Right. It's just extra work at that point, taken away from other stuff.
I could be, teaching these kids, I used to say like more gooder, right?
Right.
I would purposely say things wrong like that because it would always grab somebody's attention.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Attention, the senior drill instructors. They're like, yeah, okay. All right, son. Like, but you got what I'm saying. But yeah, I used to joke around like that. And certain drill masters would get mad at me and whatever. But that was always my thought process behind it. But the other part was, I'm a Marine and we're going to teach these kids how to be basically trained Marines. And part of it is being good at things that you necessarily don't want to be good at. Right. You are going to, as a Marine, you're going to put your best foot forward no matter what it is. So, sometimes the kids might have heard me make an unenthusiastic comment about, we're going to go out to the military dance recital now, or say something about how like you don't play shortstop for the Yankees. Stop bossing your boots up so I can see your socks.
Yeah.
Comedian stuff.
Oh yeah. But, they always knew like, hey, I'm going to put my best foot forward no matter what it is, even if I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to come out here and spend 2 hours roasting in the sun, like turning left, walking in a box. Like, that's not something I enjoy coming out here to go do. it's part of the process. We got to do it. Let's go out here and do it as best as we can, which is funny that I feel that way. And I won drill so many times too.
That's awesome. But you know what? It's probably because it probably has something, I mean, multiple aspects to that, but it probably has something to do with the way you approached the material, like the actual material, like, you know, very, very seriously in the beginning. And then it's just, it's like a thing that we have to do. We're going to do our best at it. But your primary focus was on other aspects of training. So it probably almost relaxed the recruits a little bit when it came to drill. Because I can remember in my platoon, guys getting all kind of stressed out when it came time to, like, you know, practice drill. Although I will say I always enjoyed when they'd move the racks in boot camp. They'd bunch all the racks up in the squad bay, and then you do practice drill inside. And usually that's with your senior too. I would say I remember my senior drill instructor doing that the majority of the time. But yeah, I could see that. I could see that happening. That's wild.
So I have a question going off of all this. Especially when there's honor platoons and winning certain categories, I don't know what to call them, but events, training events throughout your time there. What is your, maybe not your favorite, but what was something that might have been most enjoyable as a drill instructor, or a senior drill instructor for that matter, that you recall that was good for you, something that you enjoyed to do most times?
As a senior, I always liked going out to, like, the rifle range and anything field related, right? I mean, like, that was my domain. Like, we're going to go out here and this is what we're about. The honor platoon stuff, it doesn't help a recruit one bit. They might lie to you about it, but that's all for drill instructors. Drill instructors, you're evaluated based on your stats. And so we would get awarded, let's say we would get SIRCOMs for having an honor platoon, right? Which helped us out in fitness report world. And so every event carried a point weight, and then the platoon went to highest. They, at the end of the cycle, you know, you had initial drill, final drill, rifle range, initial testing, final testing, prac gap. They all went into this scoring matrix, and then, you know, winner was honor platoon. So that's kind of how that went. Oh, PFT, CFT was in there as well. But I really liked going out there in the field, especially since, you know, it's our people that are out there. You got grunts that are there. You're doing grunt stuff. And when they see that you're passionate about the things that is war fighting, right? These are the skills that you need to really, truly hone in on, regardless of what your MOS is, because don't wait to be in a situation to be like, oh, I wish I would have trained harder. I think that pays dividends down the road, as far as, you know, especially when it's like your senior drill instructor is the first one to throw cami paint on.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, okay. You know, you see the drill instructors in the corner, and they're kind of complaining about putting drill instructor or cami paint on. And then all of a sudden, you know, your senior comes out and, like, he's got cami paint on. It's like, why the hell are you guys not wearing cami paint?
Yeah.
You know, like, I get it. I'm holding a cup of coffee right now, but I still put cami paint on, you know. And that's actually a true story.
Oh, that's hysterical, dude. I can remember my senior drill instructor is the first person I ever saw with cami paint on.
Yeah, they used to cry so much about it. Like, oh, I would go to wear cami paint. I'm not in boot camp. I don't care.
Right. You're the one training. You're the example. You're putting it on. For, you know, I get that. I get that. Don't be lazy.
The classroom out there at Weapons Field Training Battalion out there, when you went through basic warrior training,
mm-hmm.
that classroom out there, you as a recruit, you feel like you're so far away from everything, but it's like a 10-minute drive to the PX, you know?
Yeah.
It does feel that way.
It does. It feels like you're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, but really, if you ever go back to Parris Island and just kind of go around a little bit, you would be shocked at how small it is. You'd be shocked at how small it is. Like when you thought how far away the rifle range is, like literally you could like almost see the PX, the main exchange from the rifle range.
Really?
Well, I figured that out after the rifle range on team week. I was the recycling recruit, so this guy would drive us around. There was 3 of us in a old Ford F-350 with a trailer. We would pick up cardboard that week to be recycled and crushed. And I got to see how small that island was, and I thought, and it kind of messed with my head a little bit. Like I thought this was way bigger. Where have we been walking to? How did we get? How many circles have we done?
Like it's not that big.
Yeah.
But, dude, I'll tell you, I had a weird experience on team week. I got me and one other kid. It's like they didn't have anything for us to do, so they kept throwing us to these random jobs where they didn't need us. Like we would show up and they would. The first one we got assigned. The first one I was a little nervous because we got assigned to a 4th Battalion, but something like back in there where they store all the equipment and stuff. We were supposed to do something with all the exercise equipment that they have there and the little storage unit they had. We showed up and the drill instructor that was in charge of us for the day came over and was like, all right, we'll pick this up and I'll be back later to tell you something. Well, it took us like 20 minutes to do what he wanted to do. But we sat there for like 6 hours and no one came back until the end of the day. Someone came back and got us. And then the day after that, I went out to, there's like a work shed out on like near the right, like where you do the failure to stop drills section of the rifle range, the combat marksmanship area, and where they build the targets and all that. I went out to like the work shed that they had for that. There was a corporal out there. It was an infantry corporal that's what his job was on base. And he's like, yeah, dude, you guys just go hang out over there in the shade. If I need something, I'll call you. He had us do like a few things throughout the day, but we just sat around and did nothing. It was the weirdest part of my Parris Island experience because I felt like I was going to get in trouble for doing exactly what I had been told to do just because I was so stagnant for so long. It wasn't like being active at all. But I don't know. Do they still do team week anymore?
No. Well, they didn't when I left. They used to have like certain days. It became a big mess when they got rid of 3rd phase because certain people were contracted to get team weekers, like laundry. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden you were sending kids to do the laundry stuff that were like training day 4. They didn't even know how to recruit yet. And we're sending them out to go help laundry over there. So I used to pitch a fit about team week all the time. And, there's really nothing that could have happened about it at the time. Like, I mean, kids, they didn't come to Parris Island to cut grass. They didn't come to Parris Island to do the laundry. They came down here to learn how to be a Marine.
Right. That kind of leads me to the last little section of your career here, dude, as a drill instructor. But when you make it to being a senior drill instructor, one of the things, if I were to, like, if there was a speech that I could sum up like the all the good feelings of the Marine Corps, like all the honorable feelings you get and like, the hard charge and like looking back on it now, you know what I mean? Like that the way it makes you feel about it in hindsight, it'd be that senior drill instructor speech on Black Friday. It's like, it's one of the best written pieces of oratory that I've ever heard, and especially when someone, they emphasize the right parts of it, and their voice is like they're yelling, their command voice is on point. That speech can give you all the feels, dude. It's very impressive. It talks about I know there's one section where it talks about a Marine never lies, cheats, or compromises. Marines never steals. You'll do the you will strive to do your best at everything you're trying to do here, and above all else, never quit, never give up. Something. I mean, I'm sure you have it far better memorized than that, but
yeah.
You think you could still rip it off now?
I probably could, yeah. I don't know if my voice would hold out.
Well, real quick, you don't have to do the whole thing. If you have some highlighted sections of it, and you don't have to do it in the drill instructor voice, but just so like people that have never heard it before, maybe you can give the part I was trying to give a little better than I did.
All right. So, obviously the infamous start to that is sit up straight and look at me.
Sit up straight, get your eyes on me. I'll never forget that,
Everybody
dude.
sat up a little bit more straight.
You give me goosebumps thinking about it.
Introduce the drill instructors, and then our mission is to train each one of you to become a United States Marine. Marine is characterized as one who possesses the highest of military virtues. He obeys orders, respects his seniors, and strives constantly to be the best at everything he does. Discipline and spirit are the hallmarks of Marine. Each one of you can become a Marine if you develop discipline and spirit. We will give every effort to train you, even after some of you have given up on yourselves. Starting now, you will treat me and all other Marines with the highest of respect, for we have earned our place as Marines and will accept nothing less than that from you. We will treat you as we do our fellow Marines, with firmness, fairness, dignity, and compassion. Physical or verbal abuse from another Marine or recruit will not be tolerated. If anyone should abuse or mistreat you, I expect you to report such incidents immediately to me. Now that I've told you what my drill instructors and I will do, from you, we demand the following. You must give 100% of yourselves at all times. Obey all orders quickly, willingly, and without question. Treat all Marines and recruits with courtesy and respect. You will not physically abuse or verbally threaten another Marine or recruit. Be completely honest in everything that you do. A Marine never lies or cheats. Respect the rights and properties of all others. A Marine never steals. You must work hard to strengthen your body, your spirit, and your mind. Be proud of yourself in that uniform that you now wear. But above all else, never quit or give up, for we offer you the challenge of recruit training and the opportunity to earn the title United States Marine.
And that's when all the drill instructors behind you snap into that position of attention again. Dude, witnessing it in person is unbelievable. And that the line, you know, there's a few lines in there that stand out to me. They're so strong, but the one that says that we will give every effort to train you even after some of you have given up on yourselves.
That one gets me.
Man, but it's so true though, because that's the job. That's what they're there to do. And there's everybody, I don't care who you are, will give up on yourself at some point in boot camp. Like, you'll wake up one day and be like, oh, dude, I don't know if I'm gonna put out 100%. And drill instructors will accept nothing less. And that's what you grind into them. It's you know, I love that. I think. And listen, when I was witnessing it for the first time, I was so nervous about what was getting ready to happen that I didn't really take it in fully. You know what I mean? What I was listening to, but. You know, I still remember it. I still remember my senior drill instructor giving that speech, and I can remember my heavy hat and kill hat behind him and watching them snap back to attention when he's like, offer you the chance to become United States, snap, Marines. Because it's on Marines, they do it, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they've changed it a few times too. Now, when I first got there, you know, the drill instructor stood behind there while the senior was giving the speech, and then you'd snap on Marines. But then they had changed it to where they didn't want the drill instructors in the background, that kind of distracting recruits, I guess, because they were just being there. They didn't want like kids just staring at the drill instructors. So they would have the drill instructors walk away. They would march off, and then it was just the senior up there.
I didn't feel that the drill instructors behind the senior drill instructor was distracting at all. If anything, it makes it seem more intimidating almost. You're like, God dang, this is intense, dude. These guys are so locked on.
It's such a command presence. You really pay attention.
Yeah, it's like what you were saying about how like you didn't really take in a lot because you were so nervous. They want the drill instructors out of that picture. So it's just the senior talking to the platoon and not like this big, because there's some massive dudes that are drill instructors. And it's like, that guy's sitting there like, I'm not paying attention to anything anybody else is saying, because I'm just looking at this giant dude that's about to like eat my soul.
Mine was, dude, my heavy hat, he was probably 6'2" or 6'3". He might even been a little taller than that, and just yoked, dude. Big old dude, drill instructor Sergeant Scott. And that guy was so intimidating, man, for a little 18-year-old Colby fresh out of high school, man. I'm thinking, God, he's going to be in charge of me for the next 3 months? Yikes. I watched him kick a foot. One time he got so mad, he kicked a foot locker. These, the wooden foot lockers you get at boot camp. And it was one of the ones they stagger the racks at boot camp. So some will be, the bunk beds will be right on that line that you line up on, and some will be like a foot locker's width back from the line. But they'll keep the foot locker up even with the rest of the foot lockers in the squad bay. It won't always be like up against the rack. So this foot locker is not up against anything. Like if you were to push it, it would slide. And he got so mad one day, he kicked the front of that foot locker, and he kicked it so hard and so fast that his foot went through it, and the foot locker didn't move. He just snapped through the wood in the front, big hole in the front of it, and the foot locker didn't move at all, but his foot went into it.
Nice.
I thought, God dang, dude, I do not want to do McMap with that guy.
Or anything.
No. But he was a great heavy, man. We really enjoyed, I enjoyed getting to learn from him. But that day is one day that you get to boot camp, and when you're going through receiving, people are talking about Black Friday, like you're hearing about it, even though you're not really talking at all. You somehow you still hear about Black Friday, and it starts to build up to be this thing where you're like, oh my God, this is gonna suck. It's gonna be chaos, all this, that, and the other. That being said, dude, you get to the Black Friday, and you have the senior drill instructor speech and all that, and then the heavy hat will pick up right after that. That's when they start going through a wall is now a bulkhead, a bathroom is a head, a window is a porthole. Like they start going through all these different things, port side, starboard side, all that stuff, and it's just a process after that. It does turn into a little bit of chaos kind of takes over, but it's only chaotic if you're in it, because I have since watched a video of Black Friday, and I actually saw something really interesting that I never picked up on while I was going through it. But you have the time frame where the heavy will be like telling them how to put together their foot locker, or how to set up their rack or whatever. Like he's giving out the instruction, and then he'll tell them, get to work, like start doing what I just showed you. And they'll start counting down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. They'll start real slow, and then they get fast at the end. And while they're doing that, like while you're putting your stuff together, whatever you've been instructed to do, the kill hats are running around the squad bay and yelling and getting people to say, aye, aye, sir, and do it faster and all this stuff. But I noticed in this video that when they started getting down to 4, 3, 2, and 1, right? Like whenever they got to 1, the drill instructors would be back at parade rest at either at the front or the back of the squad bay, like the where the exits are. But they would be online just like the recruits. Is that kind of how it works on?
Well, especially that first part where the senior drill instructor speech, you probably didn't notice how many people were probably standing in the back of the squad bay. Right, you're going to have up to and including the regimental commander on your deck in the back of the squad bay. Right.
Yeah.
So, you got a lieutenant colonel, you got a full bird colonel, you got 2 sergeant majors back there. You have your command as far as your company commander, series commander. You might even have the general, the Eastern Recruiting Region general on your deck sometimes.
That's a lot of pressure right there.
It is.
They're all just kind of standing in the back. So for that, there's a little bit of a show element for it. But what you're saying as far as usually when you would always tell your new drill instructor, when you might have heard your drill instructor, but not really picked up on it at the time, but emphasize certain numbers in his count.
Yeah.
And he's telling his other drill instructor, shut up, because I want those kids to be able to hear me. So when I get to 5, you stop talking.
Interesting.
Makes sense, yeah.
Interesting.
So sometimes that will happen, and they'll emphasize 5 or another number or something like that. And that's telling the other drill instructor, shut your mouth and let the kid get done and get online, because I got stuff to do.
That's cool, man. That's cool. See all these little glimpses behind the curtain we're getting on this.
Yeah.
I've always been curious as to this. How long did it take you to get good at counting down like that?
I felt like I was pretty good at being I wasn't very good at, I don't want to say wasn't very good at, but it wasn't my style to be a good 4th hat, right? When I was a 3rd hat, I was pretty decent at being a 3rd hat, but I felt like I was in my own as a heavy. Being a heavy as an infantry squad leader, that's easy day, right? So I felt like as a heavy and a boss, I was very effective at those 2 roles. and they count a little bit different because a third hat, they're flying through numbers and stuff. So again, it was kind of like your voice thing too, is like some guy might be very effective at being a numbered hat. They can run, they can scream, they can make kids do what they want them to do. They can count really fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like me, I'm used to, hey, we got a mission, we're gonna get it done kind of mentality. So I was very effective at the upper levels of my time as a drill instructor. So like you said, that really depends. I feel like, it took me a little while to get into the swing of things as a numbered hat, but as a heavy and then a boss and later on a chief for a little bit, I was in my own.
Nice, dude. Well, because you are right. They do count differently. Like I do remember that the kill hats are going to be, it's always fast. Like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Like always really quick through it. And then the heavies would usually start slow. And then when they got down to like 10, if they were doing a long countdown, if they got down to 10, it'd start to speed up. Or if it was from 10, it'd start out slow and they get down to like 4 and it starts speeding up. And then sometimes they would do the last like 3 numbers slow, right? 3, 2, and 1. Like they'd give you a little extra time to get online or do whatever.
There was always that emphasis with the and for my drill instructors, it was a all sergeant team, and it seemed like everything went quick. And then once we got to 10, it was 10, 9, 8, 7, and then 2 and 1. Mm-hmm. And on that 1, it was we all had to reply with "done, sir," and stop moving, whether you were done or not.
Dude, I remember too, speaking of numbers, the Marine Corps has ingrained some things in me, because to this day, if I hear someone say 0, my immediate reaction is to want to say, freeze, recruit, freeze. It's still there, dude, and I haven't said that in so long, like actually like been required to say that, and I still think that every time I hear the word 0. Freeze, recruit, freeze.
Yeah, you can tell when your drill instructor wanted you to be done. Like, they are going to make this count. I need them to be done. And they would do stuff like that. And to this day, I think I was at work the other day and something happened. I was like, whoa, 0.
Yeah.
That's hysterical, dude. That's hysterical.
Being a U.S. Marine and fighting for my country is one of the things in my life I am most proud of. Although there are so many positives that came from my experience in the Marine Corps, like many of you, I had another battle I had to fight when my service was done. It's no secret that PTSD affects many active duty and former servicemen and women every day, as well as their family members and the first responder community. If you or a family member is struggling with PTSD, Colby and I recommend looking into the Mighty Oaks Foundation for help in your battle with this condition. The Mighty Oaks Foundation is a faith-based veteran service organization that teaches combat veterans struggling with post-traumatic stress how to get beyond combat trauma and live their lives in the manner God intended. Many combat vets are unable to reintegrate back into civilian life, leaving their families to deal with the aftermath of broken homes and suicide at times. By aligning their lives to biblical principles, these warriors are able to lead their families, their communities, and our nation. Their mission is to serve and restore our nation's warriors and families who have endured hardship through their service to America, and to help them find a new life purpose through hope in Christ and their resiliency and peer-to-peer recovery programs. More than 4,000 alumni have participated in Mighty Oaks programs, as they maintain one of the highest success rates of any recovery program in preventing veteran suicide and divorce. In fact, the programs are so successful that they receive hundreds of active duty military on official orders each year. Additionally, through a proactive effort, Mighty Oaks has provided resiliency programs to over 150,000 active duty troops on military bases worldwide. Find more information on the Mighty Oaks Foundation by visiting americafogofwar.com and follow the link Mighty Oaks Foundation located in the menu at the top of the homepage. Never fight alone. Get some backup in your fight with PTSD today.
It makes me wonder, so have you noticed, because you hear a lot of times about guys that have become drill instructors, it changes a lot of your personality. Like you go to drill instructor school one way and Parris Island one way, and then after your time on Parris Island, you could be considered almost a different person, because for one, you're a lot more disciplined usually in your day-to-day, interactions with people and your own personal life. 2, your voice changes. That's pretty stereotypical to expect of a person going into the drill field. Like I can even tell a little bit of a difference in your voice. You can hear it. It snaps louder almost in the back, like in the back of your throat. It has a little bit of a louder tenor to it than it used to. But what have you noticed, just personally, like as far as yourself goes, that has changed as a result of being a drill instructor? And like, what's some of those lasting changes you think you walked away with?
So to this day, I get up at 4. My alarm goes off at 4 in the morning. So I'm always on time. I'm always, getting up early. I think some of the lasting impressions too is nothing will ever be that bad. You don't ever realize how bad your drill instructors' lives were until you've been in that role, right? You probably didn't realize that, your drill instructor was basically deployed from his own house.
Right, because you guys are there all the time, you're sleeping less than recruits. That's for sure.
Oh, for sure. All PT field's going to be set up, safety gear and stuff's going to be filled. All that stuff's going to be done by 3:45, and now the recruits get up at 4. Now your day starts. You're on deck 15 minutes after they go to sleep. So they go to sleep at 8. You're there till 8:15. And now you can finally get some of your own stuff done. So if you get, 4 hours of sleep, that was a blessing, right? And especially if you're on duty, you got to get up in the middle of the night and go jack with Firewatch a little bit, make sure they're doing the right thing.
Right.
So nothing will ever be that bad, right? Between, certain combat experiences and then being a drill instructor, my life has been like so easy now because it's like, whatever.
It could be worse.
Ever going to suck. It could be worse.
Well, dude, it's funny you say that too, because there's only one other place I can think of that you have such a high output level as you would as a drill instructor. Not getting sleep, working all day, probably not having time to eat like lunch or like certain meals because you just have to work through them. But the only time I've ever been on a schedule like that is on deployment. Specifically, more so than any of them was the Marshall one that we all went on together. I went on that one as a squad leader, so I had SOG duties. I was sergeant of the guard for certain stretches of our time there, and I would we were assaultmen. So in the platoon I was tasked out to, we didn't do night patrols. Assaultmen didn't do night patrols, and my junior guys didn't stand post. Because we would do 2 patrols during the day. We were doing 3 patrols. It would be 2 day patrols and then 1 nighttime patrol. And the squads would kind of rotate when they would go on that. And then the 11s would do a patrol, and they would stand post at an opposite time of the day. That's kind of how the rotation went. Well, the first daylight patrol would usually leave real early in the morning, like just as the sun's getting ready to come up. So you'd leave and it'd still be kind of dark. Mm-hmm. And you'd come back, it'd be like just before, sometimes at noon, sometimes just before noon. You'd get a little bit of downtime, and then you'd go back out again at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon for another few hours to go patrol a different sector with another squad.
You'll make contact.
Right. So I would do those 2 patrols during the day, and then I would have sergeant of the guard I had the midnight to 06 shift or midnight to 05 or it started at midnight. So I was just never sleeping, dude, because you remember it was so hot there that if you had to go to bed before 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, like good luck. You're sweating so bad it wasn't going to happen. And that's the only time in the Marine Corps that I was I had such an output. Like I was just constantly working, like even in training, you don't operate like that. In training, there's like, even if it's a field op, you might have a day or two where you get very little sleep. But typically, they'll let you catch up on sleep.
Yeah.
What's crazy about doing it as a drill instructor is I never thought about it in combat being like, oh, this sucks because I'm not getting any sleep. It's just what you're there to do. And you're in a war zone. Like, it's really easy to accept that, all right, I'm probably not going to get sleep tonight, but whatever, it'll buff out. As a drill instructor, you're still in America, right? Like, you're on a base where everybody else is probably getting, all the sleep they need and getting to eat in the chow hall all the time and enjoy their Marine Corps career to a certain extent, like it not be absolutely miserable. But drill instructors, it's a different story. Like, you guys, you guys are working constantly. I think about how frequently they were, like my drill instructors were there and how early they were showing up and how late they would stay. And it's just nonstop, dude. And you also have to have all your own personal stuff locked on. Like your uniforms have to be impeccable, all of them. And, you know, your sleeves have to be rolled perfect if you're rolling sleeves. And just everything down to a T has to be so locked on. And you have to do all that stuff in your off time, I would assume. Is that right? Like you got to do that when you're done with your work day.
Every day's Monday.
And you're not, like, especially a new hat, you're not eating when the recruits are eating. So the recruits are eating, you're making sure they're sitting up straight, that they're not choking to death, that, you know, that kind of stuff. So you're not even getting a break when they're in the chow hall. The senior is going to get a little bit of food, and usually you have a good boss. He's going to take care of these. You know, they're in, you know, getting this class or whatever. You know, hey, I got you a rip it and a little burrito from the, you know, X, and you think you got the best senior drill instructor in the world. Like, I've never worked for a better person than this guy. He got me a rip it.
A rip it. I haven't had a rip it in so long,
It's
dude.
the cheapest energy drink out there.
Yeah. Then you got guys that, you know, you have a wife and kid, and you're going home. Your kid's asleep. You're gone when they wake up. So you've essentially not seen your own. You've lived in the house, kinda, but you haven't seen your own family the whole time, and that's where it's like a weird line. Because when you're deployed, you're used to that, right? You know, I'm not going to be here. When you're a drill instructor, it's like, I'm going to be here, but I'm not going to be here. Like, I might go in here and sleep on the couch, but you're never going to see me.
That'd be tough, man. That'd be tough.
It's a hard one to like navigate. It's life as a hat is a lot better now than it was when I first started. And, you know, not trying to say like, oh, you know, they didn't have it like I did, you know, like I'm happy for them. Like I'm happy that it's not the way that it was when I was, you know, when I graduated my first cycle, I was 145 pounds or something like 140 pounds at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I went in at 170, so it's like, you know, that's how much weight you cut. That was when this was before the iWatch. And we had one of those guys had one of those Fitbits or whatever. And I can remember one day they finally were like, hey, new hats, go grab some food. This is the only time you guys are going to be able to eat a little bit of chow. This is like once in a million. And I sit down in the back of the chow. I feel like I'm going to die. I can't even eat. And this dude looks at his Fitbit and he's like, dude, you know how far we've gone today? I was like, I don't want to know. He's like, it was like 25 miles or something like that running.
Whoa.
Getting after it.
Wow.
I mean, that was Tuesday, you know?
Yeah.
It was Tuesday. And we still had to go back in the squad bay after this was at evening chow. So the day wasn't even done yet. And I was like, my God, you know? So I am glad these guys don't have to feel that level of pain. You'll never be as hard as me though, new hats.
Nice.
So that leads me to another question then, because there are some kids out there that I'm sure they want to join the Marine Corps just so one day they can be a drill instructor. You know, like I'm sure that is a sought after position for kids growing up and that want to be in a military career. Do you have any kind of recommendation at all for, well, first off, where their physical fitness kind of needs to be, and then how they conduct themselves in the Marine Corps up to, because you can't just join to be a drill instructor. I mean, you got to go do your time in the fleet before you can go off and do drill instructor duty. It's what we call a B billet, as far as I remember, in the Marine Corps. And there's a few of those. There's recruiting duty, School of Infantry, and then drill instructor. And is Marine Security Guard, is that also a B billet?
MSG is, well, it's considered a B billet for staff sergeants and above that are for detachment commanders. And then security forces.
Okay, security forces is a B billet.
Or like sergeants and above.
Gotcha. I gotcha. So you're not going to go in right off the rip and just get to go to drill instructor school. Like you have to have some experience, and typically that's after your first 4 years. You most times should be at a rank where you can go to school.
Well, you got to develop a little bit too, of course.
Yeah, you got to learn how the Marine Corps works, man. Mm-hmm. But that being said, you know, how should these kids that are wanting to, you know, join the Marine Corps or another branch of the military conduct themselves to put themselves in the best position to be able to get into drill instructor school? And then also, who should they be paying attention to? What leaders should they try to emulate to be the most effective they could be in that process?
So I think just kind of like what I was talking about earlier about the reason for joining the Marine Corps, you have to have the right reason to want to be a drill instructor. If you want to be a drill instructor just because they look good in uniform and, people want to be them, you're in the wrong place, right? You should not be a drill instructor just because you want to scream at a recruit, right? I would say a Marine is a Marine, and you want to perfect the art of being a Marine as best as you can, right? So, yeah, I want to be technically, tactically proficient as an infantryman. But once you reach the staff NCO ranks, you got to be technically, tactically proficient, but the other things are so important too, as far as Marine Corps orders. Where am I looking for this? How am I doing? Different messages to headquarters Marine Corps, the fitness report process, the awards process. All these things are so important that you will stand out amongst your peers if you can do both, right? So, that's great that you can get to 240 up to the top of the hill, that you can, disass all these weapon systems, that you can write a 5-paragraph order that makes sense, but also if I told you to look up, how to write a 6105, could you do it? What does 6105 even mean? Right. So all those things are very important. And I would say your company first sergeant should be very good at that side of the house, and your company ops chief, whether you're in a rifle company, that's a company gunny, or weapons companies, you have a master sergeant there, but should be very good at it. But I think for the most part, you should just be worried about being the best Marine that you can be, becoming the best leader that you can be. And, if you want to be a drill instructor, the old running cadence, if you want to be a DI, you better be thin. That's spot on, because you're going to have to do some running. So, because the thing that you're trying to impart onto these kids is, you got to think about the Marine Corps is sending you down there because they want more of you, right?
Yeah.
You are a great example of a Marine. You have great leadership skills. You're technically, tactically proficient. I want to create more of you, So if you think about it from that perspective, go down there and be a leader. You're going to have to spend your time filling the ice coolers and screaming at recruits and sweating in the Carolina sun. That's
and with the sand fleas too.
Down there. I mean, just like as grunts, we spent how many holes have you dug in your life?
Oh, enough.
All of them.
The sexy part of, being an infantry guy is, we got to go to the defense. We got to do, all kinds of other things we don't want to do. It's not all, rainbows and raids.
Yeah. Rainbows and raids. We should get t-shirts made, rainbows and raids.
We're going to do that.
That's sick. Well, okay, so let me ask you this then, as a caveat to that question. What do you recommend for kids that are getting ready to go to boot camp? Where should they be at in preparation? Should they have their general orders memorized? And physically, where should they be? Because is the initial PFT still a 1.5 mile run?
Yep, it's a 1.5 miles. I would say, honest to God, they're going to teach you everything that you need to know. Yeah, it's cool if you can glance over it, if you know some of that stuff before you get there. But I would say, be comfortable being disgusting. Be comfortable being miserable. Be in good shape, because if, again, like we were talking about, nothing will ever be that bad. If you can have that mentality at boot camp where it's like, oh, this isn't nearly as bad as what I thought it was going to be, you're going to be all right. And I think, again, just get in good physical shape. You should be able, you're not going to get in that much better shape anymore at boot camp. You're going to thin up a little bit, but you're not going to go down there doing, you can only do 8 pull-ups when you left. You're not going to come back doing 23 pull-ups.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So be as in good of shape as you need to be in. Have that mindset, but go learn how to swim.
Nah.
How many guys do you have show up that can't swim, dude?
A ton, and they'll just get, you make it all the way through, 2 weeks of training, then you go to the pool, and then next thing you know, we're sending these kids home because they can't swim, right? The recruiter's
miserable.
not legally allowed to take you to the pool.
I did not
Right.
know that.
Yeah, so they're just taking your word on it.
Yeah. So they're not going to be able to take you to the pool, because if something were to happen in the pool, and they're not drowning you, So
Yeah.
you got to work on that your own. Go learn how to swim on your own before you go to Parris Island and figure out that, they're not really going to help you swim too much.
No,
Right.
no. Honestly, too. Listen, you have to, as far as swimming goes, you don't have to be a freaking world-class swimmer to pass at least swim qual level 4, like the basic one there. You because when you do the treading water portion, you do it with with your cami blouse on, and you can inflate it. Like, at least that's what I remember doing when I was going through. It's when you get to like the higher one, like swim qual level Q is tough. That one's tough. But outside of that, like the swim quals are not bad. You just have to be able to swim and not turn into a nervous wreck when you get in the water. Because some people do. Some people freak out when they touch the water.
Yeah. So like it's the 25-meter jump, conduct self-rescue. Like you just come off the high dive, you hit the water, and then get yourself 25 meters. Right. If you can do that, you will pass. Right. Be able to jump off. I don't remember how tall the tower is, but it's just jump off the tower, come up, and be able to swim 25 meters. That's it. If you can do that, you'll pass.
I was a safety violator on that tower.
Were you really?
By accident. Yeah. Yeah, it was that was weird. I went in there because I think you practice these things before, so I have no problem swimming, but being on that tower, there's when you climb up there, there's like a piece of tape, and you have to wait behind the tape because the recruit in front of you is hanging 10 toes, and then they kind of push him off, your arms across.
Mm-hmm.
That recruit, when I got up to the top of the ladder, I saw that recruit get pushed off briefly, and then I just stepped straight up and hang 10 toes with the drill instructor. He's looking down at the water. When he turned his head back to look back towards where I should have been standing, he looked past me, and then he looked right at me, and he flipped out, and I was a safety violator. So I had to scream safety violator over and over and over again and find my way back to the barracks, to the squad bay. And I thought, I'm by myself. Here I am walking through Parris Island by myself, screaming safety violator.
Oh, that's not
Once
where you
I got
wanna be.
through a certain, like a distance, I thought, all right, I think I know where I'm going. I stopped screaming it. Now I'm just a recruit just walking along. I get back to the squad bay, and there was other recruits there, like late chow guys or early chow guys. They were there for something. And they're like, shh, you got to be quiet. The drill instructor's sleeping. So I just hung out in a squad bay with the lights off, hanging out. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was upset. I wanted to do a harder swim qual at boot camp. They only let us do swim qual level 4, and then they're like, "All right, that's good. You're done. Go." And I was like, "But I passed. Can I do the next one?" I still had hopes of going to recon at that point, unknowingly, unaware that they weren't doing recon in doc on the East Coast anymore at that point. But
They have a different swim qual now. It's basic, intermediate, and advanced.
do they still have the swim qual level Q, like the special operations one?
No, it's the advanced swim qual is like a 2-week deal. Like if you can, they're hard to get into. It's easier to get into McQuist than it is swim qual WSA.
Get out of here, really?
Oh yeah. So nobody ever does it. But the recruits there's certain MOS fields that require a WSI. So those kids will be afforded the opportunity to do WSI at Parris Island. Nobody else will.
That's the intermediate swim qual.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember this was long after boot camp. This was actually before Marja, but after Iraq, I'm pretty sure. Because I'm pretty sure I had the long Lance Cooley hair and everything when this happened. But we went and did a swim qual. It was like the whole, I think it was the company. It might have been the whole battalion was down there just cycling through. But most guys went in. They got there. I think they got up to. I think everybody was like, "You got to get your swim qual level 3 at least." Isn't that the one where you jump in? You jump in with pack, rifle, Kevlar, like all your combat gear, and then you have to swim across the pool with your rifle on your pack. think that was swim qual level 3. Do you remember doing that?
I can't
No, I
remember what the old school levels were.
I knew they like 4 would be the easiest, and then there was 3, 2, and then there was Q. There was no swim qual level 1 that I remember. I think it went 4, 3, 2, and then Q.
Yeah.
Anyways, they were like, all right, well, if you've passed that, you can go back to the barracks, or if you want, you can stay and get a higher qual. And the rule at the time was if you passed swim qual level Q, you didn't have to take a swim qual anymore in that enlistment, at least as far as I understood it. So I was like, I'll stay and do that because I grew up in Florida. I'm very comfortable in the water, and that was the only swim qual I ever took that tested me a little bit. That one was challenging, dude. You got to do. There's like a 500 meter swim.
That's how WSI is now.
Really?
WSI was like you start with a 500 meter swim.
Listen, if you're not used to doing 500 meters in the pool, it'll smoke you. Like if you're not like comfortable with doing longer swims, then we did like a 30-minute tread water in camis and boots, and the whole time we were taking our boots off our feet, tying the laces to each other, and then you'd put the laces around your neck and hold your hands out of the water. Then they'd tell you to take them off and put your boots back on. We did that for I think it was like roughly 30 minutes, and then I don't know, there was a few other things, and now I'm starting to blend the other because you had to do all the swim quals before that to be able to get to that swim qual. That was the last swim qual I took in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, they still do the same way as far as like there's a time interval. So if you were basic, you had to do swim qual every single year. And I think WSI was like every 2 or 3 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And A was like a certain level, and I forget there's certain many. But again, nobody was afforded the opportunity to do A because it took like a week or something like that to get it. It was like a no crap course.
Did they give out those awesome khaki shorts, the swim trunks that they get at McQuist?
They use some kind of trunks now. Nobody wears I don't think they're allowed to wear the UDTs at the pool anymore.
Dude, that's a shame because those things were so cool. I used to think those were the coolest shorts the Marine Corps had, man.
I don't remember any of this.
It still wore them, but like for the most part, anybody else that showed up was like, nah, they might have been like, we're grandfathered, or they thought they were kind of like the Silkies deal.
Which is another upsetting thing I heard about. But real quick, Tommy, they're the khaki shorts with the little tiny belt. They're the same size as a pair of Silkies, dude. They're short shorts, man. But they just look like Marine swim trunks. They're cool. I don't know.
Sounds about right. I mean, I was the safety violator in Parris Island, like I said, and then they must have been marking me down on paper in the fleet because I think I might have gone to a pool one time, but I didn't even go in.
Really?
I don't think I qualified in the water for the rest of the time. After that,
you passed boot camps. They knew you could save your own life. That's all that mattered.
So I don't remember those shorts.
Dude, they were cool. But I can't believe they got rid of Silkies too, man. Those are the best shorts to run in ever.
Well, they got rid of them for unit PT. There was like little loopholes that people would use to like get away with still wearing. It's like, it's not unit PT. They're still authorized. They're not like not authorized. They're just like not your favorite thing. And it's like,
there's always a way.
Is it because they're so short? Is that why they got rid of them?
Us being us, you know what I mean? Like it's the old boys club that we used to have is non-existent anymore, right?
Oh man.
I think all you need is another war to come around, though, because I feel like that's what happens every time. Like I was asking people like Sergeant Wenzel and Sergeant R and all them, what peacetime Marine Corps was like, and they're like wildly different. They're wildly different, and I think that happens every time. I think it goes back to the kind of recruits you get, like you were talking about earlier, and also the Marine Corps. It's on a schedule. It has things to do. It streamlines a lot of that stuff, and then you start getting people that are like, there's a little bit of unit pride and morale, and everybody putting on Silkies to go for a run. It's just, I don't know. It's funny. Well, dude, I tell you, it's been a freaking awesome conversation. I feel like we could do this for hours and hours, but we've already been, I think we're like a little over 2 hours already.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So maybe why don't we plan on, we'll wrap it up here, and then we'll have you back again in a few months, and we'll just get a round 2 in.
Yeah, whenever you guys want me, let me know. I'll jump on here and tell some old stories.
Heck yeah, man. Well, dude, it was so much fun having you. I really appreciate you hopping on with us. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, make sure you never miss new ones by subscribing to the show on your podcast app of choice. And if you want to help us out with growing the show and enable us to bring you better content and more of it, then Brett and I ask you leave us a 5-star rating and a review. They really go a long way in helping us out. Stay up to date with everything from America Fog of War by connecting with us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. As always, Brett and I thank you for listening, and until next time, stay frosty.